Hi everyone, it's Melanie from MDub Designs. This is my first time trying out SquidPoxy resin. It's their tabletop formula that they sent me, and I really like the fact that they send a detailed instruction pamphlet with it. Sometimes I find you have to go and look up on the website and figure out exactly what the mixing instructions are for each formula, but this time they included a lot of detail in the pamphlet, and I found that really helpful, especially if you're starting out. It's information that you really need to know. So this is a 1-to-1 ratio, and the viscosity of it's actually quite a bit thicker than some of the other resins I've been using in the past. I've used 3 or 4 different brands consistently for the last 3 or 4 years, and this is the thickest one I've used so far. And in general, I'm actually really a big fan of it. I like the fact that when you put it down, it doesn't move on you very quickly. It is still self-leveling, so you don't have to worry about it kind of looking clumpy or lumpy or anything like that. It does still self-level, but especially for ocean wave work, I found is kind of nice because it holds the lacing, where it doesn't really, sometimes with resins that are a little bit thinner, you'll get the lacing looking right, and then all of a sudden it falls down or changes as it's curing. So I didn't find that happen with this, which was really nice. The pigments I'm using is Black Diamond pigments, and I use three different colors for the different shades of water. And then I mixed the Luxe Gold and the Luxe White together to make a sand, kind of like a champagne colored sand almost, which I really thought was nice for this kind of tropical look that I'm going for on the top of this ukulele. So mix it up about 5 minutes that you mix it, and then I separate it into cups and add the pigment to it. Just a little bit of pigment goes a long way. You don't need to add a lot. Then after that, I place the white and then blow it out with my heat gun. So the one thing about this resin, because it is a bit thicker, you do get quite a few air bubbles, especially if you don't preheat or give your resin a warm bath before mixing. You will get quite a bit of bubbles, but I find that those come out really, really easily with the heat gun, and then you don't end up with that in your final product. So don't worry about it if you're mixing it up and noticing that there's quite a few bubbles in it to start with. That's totally fine. So when you're measuring out your resin, you want to make sure that you're not doing it by weight, you're doing it by volume. So I use a mixing cup that has markings on the side for the milliliters to make sure that it's exactly even between the two. Some people think adding a little bit more hardener is going to help them, and it actually doesn't. You want to make sure that the ratio is exactly 1-to-1 or as close as you can get to that. Another thing I really liked about this resin is I found that it actually laces up quite nicely. Not all resins work very well for this type of art form. So the next thing we had to do was stain the body and the neck of the ukulele. So I used a whitewash stain where you paint it on and then use a rag to kind of wipe off the excess after a couple of minutes. And then it gives that kind of like beachy white look, but you can still see the wood grain, which is really nice. You do have to clean it up with mineral spirits, which is an important thing that I didn't know ahead of time. So it's not water soluble. So then the next step was taking the wood glue from the kit and using a dowel and gluing it into the neck, as well as putting the glue into the body and then gluing the neck to the body. Now, because I had poured resin over the entire surface, I needed to carve out a little bit of space for the fretboard, and I ended up using my Dremel to do that, and I showed that later on. So here I'm attaching the 4 tuning heads to the back of the neck. And the pine that they used is actually really easy to kind of screw it in. It's not a super hard wood. Then I'm using my Dremel to get rid of that sharp edge. When you tape an edge and then you pour resin, a lot of times you end up with a sharp edge. So you need to kind of do something about that, otherwise it's not going to be very comfortable for people to hold. So now here I'm gluing the fretboard on. You can see where I've Dremeled out that little key area to be able to make it flush. Otherwise, it probably wouldn't have attached very well, and it might have even affected the play. So I wanted to make sure that this is actually a usable ukulele. Now here I'm gluing on the nut at the top of the fretboard. So all of this sounds very technical, but I have no idea. I've never played a ukulele. I've never built one before. So this was all just from the Kirkland kit, and I found it really, really cool experience. So now we had to measure exactly the exact amount of millimeters from the top of the nut to where the bridge is going to be attached. And then I used my Dremel to drill little pilot holes into the resin before putting the screws in. Otherwise it would have been a bit difficult to actually attach the bridge. There's also little cover pieces to cover over the screws, and they're nice and pearlized, so you know, it just kind of adds to that look and that nice finished look. So here I'm attaching the strings, and I'm not gonna lie, this was definitely the hardest part and the most confusing part. They did show a little picture on the instructions on how to do it, but I felt like I still had a little bit of learning to do, because it's all just all the assembly instructions are on one page. So it's not incredibly detailed, but it is relatively easy to figure out, I find. And I just YouTubed anything that I couldn't figure out other than that, or something that was unclear. I had a lot of fun making this project, and I really hope that I can actually learn how to play. I think it would be really cool to build it, make it yourself, and then actually learn how to play. So let you know if that actually ends up happening. But overall, I'm really happy with how this project turned out. Very happy with how hard the SquidPoxy resin cured. I feel like it's very scratch resistant, and it cured hard overnight, so I was very happy with that aspect of it as well. And you can see that it's kind of glittering in the sunlight. The pigments do a really good job of bringing it to life as well. So that's it for me, and thank you so much for watching. Have a good day.